Thank you for joining another edition of Bumps and Thumps. I'm Brian Ferguson. Today, my guest has been a part of professional wrestling for many years. He is a manager and a promoter. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Brian Thompson. Brian, thanks for coming on Bumps and Thumps.
Yeah, excited to be here and join your show. Appreciate the invite. So looking forward to talking a little wrestling. I don't get to do that as much these days, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. You know, I've seen you on TV at a couple shows, and I saw you a couple weeks ago on YouTube, and I was like, you know, I'm going to reach out to that guy.
That's
and
fine.
then I find out
on? I'm like,
I was on a YouTube. I think it was on Traditional Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, TCW.
Yeah, and then I did a little more research on you, and I realized you only live 45 minutes from where I'm from. You live in Lebanon, Missouri. So I was like, wow, what a
pretty impressive digging up, information there. I'm definitely a journalist for sure. So yeah, I better lock my doors, man. This guy finds you out there, people. That's all good stuff. Like I said, I don't get to talk as much about wrestling these days. So I was looking forward to this opportunity. I was just curious what you might have seen or where, and hearing that you live in the area. Dabbled a little bit in this region with some wrestling shows and so forth. So it's interesting that you found me through the old TCW stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited for the podcast here. So I want to get into, if we can, where you grew up and your upbringing and that.
Sure.
Where are you from?
Originally grew up in the Boot Hill of the great state of Missouri. Dexter, Missouri is my hometown. Technically, in journalists, you're a native of where you were born. So I was actually born in Sikeston, but never lived there, minus, I guess, how many ever days I was in the hospital. But I grew up in Dexter, Missouri, in the Boot Hill part of the state. So great upbringing, great parents. They still live there. So I still pass through Dexter a few times a year.
Okay.
So ended up going to college at Three Rivers Community College in Poplar Bluff, and then ended up in Arkansas State University in Jonesboro, Arkansas, as far as college career and that sort of thing. So got my degree in public relations, minor in marketing. So journalism with an emphasis in public relations is how it's broken down. And of course, about the same time as I was trying that education, got an education in pro wrestling. I know we're going to go into that, but that's kind of what led to being on something like this. So.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to get into that next. How did you get into the pro wrestling business?
Oh man, time flies when you're having fun. So I was a big fan, like all of us growing up. 5 or 6 years old is my first recollection of getting into pro wrestling, and then as a fan. And then, so, the internet age, I grew up, 1990, I was a 80s baby, 90s teenager or whatever.
Yeah.
And, the internet was becoming prevalent. And so late 90s, 98, 99, I decided I was going to do the little wrestling website when they had the free websites that looked horrible by today's standards, but, you thought you were doing something cool.
Yeah.
So I was going to independent shows in the Boot Hill in different parts of Missouri, mostly the Boot Hill, Missouri, maybe some in East Tennessee or West Tennessee, at the time. And I was covering shows. And so one promotion that would come to Cape Girardeau, Missouri was Midwest Renegade Wrestling. So I would cover their shows and some information about them, and started connecting with a few of the guys on that card. And long story short, later on, that group disbanded, and the promoters kind of, it never fails egos. We all have our egos and directions we want to take, but the promotion split up, and there was one form of it called Gateway Championship Wrestling, owned by Big Ben Oliver. Big Bad Ben was his ring name in the ring. And he hit me up one day and said, do you want to, he had heard, I guess, I wanted to be an announcer in the wrestling business, said, do you want to step up to the plate and ring announce May 20th, 2000? So of course, the answer is a ecstatic yes. And so that's where it all started. So my first show was May 20th of 2000 for Gateway Championship Wrestling in Mexico, Missouri. So
Mexico, Missouri,
man, I've got it on VHS, and yeah, that's that would never see the light of day. So, but it was quite funny to see a 19-year-old me ring announcing in Mexico, a 19-year-old and probably 80 pounds lighter me ring announcing in Mexico, Missouri. So I don't know if I want to take the youth part back, but I take the lower weight back. So
yeah,
it's what it is, man.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I totally. Well, I was doing some research, like I said earlier, and I saw you in some of these other promotions. I saw you in, how did you get involved with traditional championship wrestling? That was out of Arkansas, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was based in Arkansas. Matt Riviera, it was his promotion. So that you kind of fast forward a little bit to get to that point. But yeah, I had met Matt. I think in West Memphis, Arkansas. He was coming over to a show I was involved with, and we had connected some way through that. That's the first time I met him. We actually, I think, talked on the phone before we actually met in person, and we had mutual friends in the wrestling business. But that's how I got plugged in there with Matt Riviera and meeting him and so forth. So, good opportunity there. And probably most people, I guess, as far as anything on me out there, that's probably the biggest known thing I've been able to do and be a part of, because it had pretty good television clearance at one point in time. Got to work with Chris Cruz of WCW fame. Oh, Cranky Chris. If you want to look up somebody that's always in a foul mood, look him up on Facebook. Christopher Cruz, ladies and gentlemen, befriend him, flood him with friend requests and tell him I sent you. And I can't wait to hear his response to it. But Cruz was fun to work with, and had a couple other good partners. Brendan Baxter of, a lot of people knew him in his time in Global Wrestling Federation and later on USWA in Memphis. And then Matt Rhodes, who's very well spoken announcer, mostly in East Tennessee. Most people know him from there, but he had a good run in different places too. So that's kind of, just knowing Matt and meeting him, and got plugged in there.
Okay, well, you said we fast forward, so let's go back a little bit. You were in that Gateway Championship Wrestling, and then what did you do in between that and getting into TCW?
Sure, yeah, a few stops on the way to get to TCW. So after Gateway, I'd been there about 9 months or so, and an opportunity presented itself to get connected with Memphis Championship Wrestling, which at the time was a developmental territory for the World Wrestling Federation.
Okay.
And so they were doing a show. A guy named Kelly Warner was kind of a local promoter, boots on the ground, to do a show in Kennett, Missouri. It got moved to Rector, Arkansas. Long story there, but they could take this whole podcast. We won't do that. But got connected there and got a tape to the promoter, Terry Golden. Blew his phone up, probably annoyed him like crazy. Hey man, can I get a tryout? Can I get a tryout? Probably at the time was thinking, this is falling on deaf ears. Nothing's going to happen. And of course, what happens next? You get the phone call. Yeah. And Terry said, be in these two towns, Ripley and Covington, Tennessee, one weekend in February of 2001. And I got a tryout and got to be a ring announcer on the local crew with the developmental. I didn't have a developmental contract, but I was actually working with guys like Daniel Bryan, Lance Cade, Spanky, Umaga, Victoria, Joey Abs, Pete Gas, Mean Street Posse fame. There was a lot of WWF guys down there, either under contract in the past that had been moved down there or were under a future deal, like a Daniel Bryan or Brian Danielson. And, you got to work with them every weekend. So that was a lot of fun. Bobby Eaton, one of my best friends, he passed away this past year. Yeah. But he ended up, that's how I met Bobby, was through Memphis Championship Wrestling. So Memphis lasted 6 or 7 months, and then they had lost the developmental deal, and everybody went their own different ways. And so I just would work some of the independents in Southeast Missouri and Northeast Arkansas, Western Tennessee, and actually started a promotion with a couple of partners. Jeff Odell was a financial backer, contributor to that. Kelly Warner, myself, we partnered up on a promotion, technically under Jeff's name, and so he was the technical owner, but we were kind of a trio partnership there. Okay. Lethal Attitude Wrestling, name I came up with for that group, a little different. Breaking the Law, LAW. So we held a big show one time, Poplarville, Missouri, loaded with talent. Jerry Lawler, Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, 2003, and did that. So did the LAW thing for several months and was just not seeing eye to eye. And I point fingers, as all of us, our own versions of what should be. And so Bobby Eaton had just moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And so then I got a chance to connect with him and started handling his bookings. So I went from, announcing, managing, a little bit of promoting, and then connected with him and sort of became his or actually did become his booking agent to some degree. Others would help too, but and then, he would stay with me at different stretches of time, but kind of moved into that role. And then I'd still work myself to do some announcing, managing, promoting here and there. So all the way through that. But another promotion, probably another standout one, I guess, was in Columbus, Mississippi. It was run by a guy named Joel Gillentine, and he was partnered up with Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, okay.
funny. I know we talk about some road stories here, but
Yeah.
Bobby was booked on the car with Dennis Condrey. Midnight Express, of course, had just gotten back together. This was about 2004 or 5 in that era. So they were booked on a card. Well, the Robert Gibson for his announcers had a couple local television station guys scheduled, and they didn't make it or something fell out last minute. And so we're on the way to the show, and Bobby's on the phone and said, "Hey, Hoot, Robert Gibson, his name, Hoot is his nickname, but it's like Hoot needs an announcer or something." I was dressed. I didn't have my entire suit and tie and that sort of thing, but I was business casual. I always dress business casual stuff, so
Yeah.
I could play the part. So I ended up working solo on that card. A lot of good talent was involved with that. Like I said, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Jimmy Golden or Bunkhouse Buck, Tom Pritchard, Doug Gilbert. I mean, there's a lot of different names. Bill Dundee that came through that. So I got to announce there and be part of the announce team for that for about 6 or 8 months. And so again, different promotions. Stretch ran my own company, Ringside Championship Wrestling. First run was in 2009 and 10. Had a series of shows with a financial backer there, and then later on did just myself a few shows over the last 3 years, or for a 3-year stretch. So all that, of course, partners with Bobby, and as far as his partner is a travel agent, that sort of thing, booking him around. And then in that process, TCW came along, and we all participate in that. So
You sound like you
quick.
you know a lot of people.
Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. You know a lot of people. It sounds like you've been around a lot of great talent, a lot of great stars that from the 80s and 90s that are considered legends today. I mean, you mentioned Lawler, Jarrett, Nash, Dundee. Sounds like you were exposed to a lot of great guys.
Yeah, very fortunate, to work with a lot of good talents. Tracy Smothers is another one. I miss him too. He just passed away a year ago here recently. It's the 1-year anniversary, but got to work with Tracy. I sat down. I really need to sit down. If I'm looking back and saying some of the things I regret, I should have been like Jim Cornette was and took meticulous notes on everything you did, the house, and some of the houses were negative numbers. But anyway, look back and do some of that sort of thing where I just kind of, kept better records. At first I did. I think I kept all my bookings, I worked here and I made this $5 here, this $10 there, whatever. Then you kind of get out of the groove. But man, you're right. I got the chance to work with so many legends that I grew up watching. And really the cool thing was that being with, Bobby Eaton's associate and partner and friend, or however you want to look at it, as far as our friendship there, and the travel agent or whatever title you want to put, one of my best friends, of course, in life in general. But being, associated with him and walking into a locker room, you've got a whole different level of respect. And that's not taken away from anybody else. It's just, they don't even know you, and automatically they give you a different, you're automatically cool in their eyes because you're hanging out with beautiful Bobby and y'all are friends. So that was an awesome, thing to have. And he helped me meet Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan the same night in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2008. And you're like, wow. For me, that was kind of the bucket list. I mean, for me, a personal bucket list. Those are the guys. I was a Hulkamaniac and a fan of the Horsemen, all rolled into one in the 80s. You get me to meet those guys same night and take pictures with them as a quote, as a peer in a roundabout way was, you can't really, it's priceless. So, getting to, and of course he made that happen. So, so
I've heard a lot of,
he's such a kind-hearted soul, he'd be like, hey, Brian, that's Hulk Hogan. I'm like, yeah, I kind of can tell, I just, you're a little starstruck on ones like that. So I did one thing I failed to mention on the timeline there. Got to spend 3 years working for Harley Race and his Worldly Wrestling promotion, Leland Race. So that was another. There's another. I mean, it's just I look back and now it's like I guess I don't get to do these as often anymore because I'm not as active. But it's cool to reminisce.
In fact, I remember now it wasn't just TCW or WLW, and I've been to some of their shows when they were in Eldon for a while, and then when they moved to Troy, I went to a couple shows there.
That may be where you saw me too, because I worked in Troy from 2014 to 17.
Okay,
so I ring announced a lot of those cards. And
my favorite team there was Dave DeLorean
Yeah.
and
Warriors.
yeah, Black Hand Warriors. Those guys, they're a riot. I mean, they were good, but they also know how to, make you, interested in the show, I guess.
They're good guys. I met them in those early days WOW's been around a while, but I
Yeah.
was there in my early days with WOW in 2014 and so forth. So yeah, enjoyed working with them. Leland Race, he's great. Stacey O'Brien, love them, and just I see they're still doing some great things. And so if you're out there listening and can get to Troy or any of their other tour stops, I encourage you to do so.
Yeah, actually, they have a show this weekend up in Troy on Saturday the 6th. I might go. I don't know yet. I'm still contemplating. That's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah, Mid States Wrestling's another one. All these promotions come flooding back that are not too far from you.
Yeah.
But Mid States Wrestling runs in Springfield and Harrison.
Okay.
Actually, we have a tribute show coming up to Bobby in November 20th in Harrison, Arkansas. And I haven't done anything in a while, and that's one of the few things I'll come out of retirement for, as they say. So
yeah.
We'll see what
well, all
happens.
right. I'll have to look at that and see if I can get down there for that. I'd like to do that. You were talking about Bobby. I had a podcast with a couple months back with Jack Lord. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
And him and Bobby worked together in Alabama down there. They were running a promotion, and I've heard nothing but positive and great things about Bobby Eaton, not just from Jack, but from other people. They always say Bobby Eaton was one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, too nice, man. Sometimes,
Yeah.
He never met a stranger and would help anybody out. So,
and it was a sad day when he passed away. I mean, his wife had passed away, I think a month or two earlier.
Yeah.
And that was just, a bad time, for a lot of people.
And technically, wrestling wise, I ended up being the last wrestling person to see him alive. He had gotten out of the hospital and I went to visit him, and I got to take him home from the hospital. He had a lot of health issues. Like I say, he stayed with me for many years. And so I had made many ER hospital type visits with him. So that was almost customary. We kind of had the joke, here I am again, man. We're taking you home from the hospital.
Yeah.
Just little did you know that was gonna be the last time. So encourage everybody to make every moment matter. But exactly. It was a hard loss, no doubt about it. And miss him dearly. So
I know a lot of people do that knew him, and he touched a lot of lives. Travel experiences. Let's talk about your travel experiences. I know you said Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri. Is there any
number of states? It's in the 30s. I think 30 something states, because and I attribute 25 of those to Bobby, because 25 of those that probably wouldn't have happened had I not been associated with Bobby. Let's just leave it at that. So yeah, we did some ridiculous distances in my car. I've destroyed cars in the sense that I ran them until they couldn't go any further, and then I went and got a new car. We would put on the longest trip we ever did was we went from Jonesboro, Arkansas to Carteret, New Jersey.
Oh my goodness.
Which is a 26-hour one-way drive.
Oh.
When you include stops and things like that. So we had a lot of fun. We'd had the stories of the blown out tire at 2:00 in the morning, coming back from a road trip, and Nashville, having to get off an exit late night, 2:00 in the morning, change the tire, all the standard fare you hear from any wrestling personality. I put a lot of miles on the cars and our bodies and everything else, just because you don't realize how, part of the biggest thing in wrestling that beats you up. And I didn't take a whole lot of bumps. I know this is bumps being part of the title of this podcast, but I didn't take a whole lot of bumps in comparison to, or not even a fraction to a wrestler, and especially like a Bobby. But man, those just driving for hours upon hours and hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, it'll beat you up, and it'll take its toll. And it feels like it's worse once you get out of the loop of doing that. When you're in the trenches doing that all the time, you feel like you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. But man, I took a vacation where we traveled about 1,400 miles in a week, and I think I'm still recovering from it. I used to do that every weekend. Like, and we one time I somehow ended up in Charlotte. I went to meet him in Charlotte and then doubled up to Cincinnati, Ohio. That's just kind of
Oh,
crazy
wow.
road trips. But I loved it, man. I
Goodness.
was in my 20s and
Yeah.
couldn't wait to hit the road and see the
Yeah.
world, or see a big chunk of the world, the United
Yeah.
States anyway.
Yeah.
And we traveled a lot. So
Wow. Were you ever in any of the like the WWE or NWA or anything like that, or were you just all regional promotion?
yeah, regional minus, like I said, the closest to anything of any major stature there was that early run in Memphis where it was
Yeah.
part of the WWF system.
Right.
I wasn't, like I said, under contract like Daniel Bryan or one of those guys, but I was,
Right.
I was like, you
Right
figured
there.
if this held, of course it was a little bit too much too soon, because you kind of get into the comfort zone that if I'm here, they're going to be watching these tapes and eventually they're going to discover you've got something to offer, and then you may get something, they pulled the plug on Memphis,
Yeah.
or at least that partnership. So
Yeah.
that never materialized. Most of my things were, like you said, getting to meet and work with a lot of those legends. Bob Orton, I've managed him a few times, brought him into my own shows in the past. So,
Okay.
just getting to meet a lot of guys like that and worked independence and really travel with Bobby. Traveling with Bobby was like its own internal promotion within amongst itself, because you're traveling with this guy and handling all his business affairs and so forth from a booking standpoint. So yeah, and we had a tag team with Golden Boy Greg Anthony called Midnight Gold for a couple of years there. It was a lot of fun to do too. So again, lots of fun with different good promotions, but never was under contract to anybody anywhere. But fortunately had a good life as far as a plan B. So I was never at the mercy of whatever the wrestling situation was. So kind of always made it kind of the fun plan B, where I could pay the bills with the main gig and, not have to worry about certainly wasn't worried about the payoff, because they weren't, I undercut myself. I was mainly focused on, working on making sure Bobby was staying busy. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was all good. I wouldn't do anything necessarily different,
Okay.
I'd like to have those times back, but I wouldn't do it, it worked out well for me.
Good. Chemistry, obviously you had a great relationship with Bobby Eaton. Any other wrestlers or maybe a promoter out there that you just clicked with, or when you did an interview with somebody, you just clicked?
Yeah, I mentioned, a lot of good chemistry with Chris Cruz as a commentary partner. Matt Rhodes, same thing. There's a lot of guys. Golden Boy as a partner. Here's a guy that didn't need a manager to talk for him, but when we were Midnight Gold, he gave me the opportunity to say things on the microphone and take that, kind of lead that at times. I mean, sometimes he would run the promo, but a lot of times he would give me, because I'm not going to go in there and perform in the ring even, like he does, but he'll let me cut the promo. So, chemistry there. Brendan Baxter, I thought, like I said, all my partners on the, in commentary, a guy named John Steele. I mentioned the run with Robert Gibson. He was a broadcast partner of mine. He he connected with us while we were running shows at LAW promotion I mentioned. A lot of, I felt like a lot of different guys. I felt like me and Bob Orton had chemistry when I managed him a few times, and Tracy Smothers, and, different kind of chemistries, working against people. Like, actually, I'll tell you, one of the matches I felt like really clicked one time for TCW. I think it was either TCW or Matt was just doing some shows of the NWA later on, but he ran a show where I managed Prince Al-Farad, Middle Eastern descent, against Hacksaw Jim Duggan either on or around the 4th of July. It's either 3rd or 4th of July.
Yeah.
So here I am managing a Middle Easterner around the 4th of July against, an American hero in Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
We kind of laid out, way this match should go.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was one of the smoothest. Everything just worked like clockwork. We didn't do a bunch of flips and flops or over the top this or that, but everything meant something. Everything was over. We did, I ended up jumping on the apron and grabbing Jim, and actually Bobby and another guy was in the corner of Duggan. And so Farad ended up clocking the one guy, and Bobby's checking on him, and he comes to hit Duggan. Duggan ducks. I take the shot. And then Duggan ends up hitting a 3-point stance, 1, 2, 3. But that was one of the smoothest matches I've ever managed. Of course, it was one of my favorite promos, where I looked at the audience. There's probably 1,100 people there, and I'm like, what's wrong with you people? Don't you know how to treat a guest in our country? You know, trying to reference Prince Alfarad. You know, that got a lot of love, but no, that's just to name a few, man. I'm totally missing a lot of people by,
Yeah.
you know, again,
Yeah.
I've been involved in some capacity wrestling for 21 years. So,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of chemistry with a lot of different people in different formats and what
Yeah.
they're, you know, what we need to accomplish. But those are just a few of them that stand out.
Okay. Well, I wanted to, do you watch any wrestling now, like the Raw, AEW, Dynamite, anything like that? Do you do?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I still, sometimes I'm more engaged in it than others, but yeah, I still watch it. I still support wrestling. I can't tell you that I'm a total fan of the
Yeah.
way things are,
Mhm.
but in general, I'm still a wrestling fan and I'm
Yeah.
still supportive. I can look at it from the promoters or even one of the boys' standpoint and say, you know, that's not how I would do it. But they're making a lot more money than I ever did at it. So I mean, they may know more than, or that they do know more than me, of course. It's not my cup of tea, but I'm happy for the talents that get,
Yeah.
you know, an opportunity to work, whether it's WWE or AEW or Impact, MLW, Ring of Honor. I know they're struggling right now, but I have
Yeah.
some friends in those places, so I'm happy for the talent to have options, and so.
Yeah.
I still, you know, read online. If I'm not watching, I am staying in touch online as far as what's going on. But usually, I have Raw, SmackDown on the background, Dynamite, Rampage. Sometimes catch MLW, NWA. Trevor Murdoch's another guy.
Came from
You know, did a little bit
WLW.
of, yeah, Trevor, and he's speaking right down the road. You know, a guy not far from us, but Trevor
Yeah.
traveled some with Trevor. Did a couple of bookings with him. You know, was the time I was, you know, he sets up most of his own dates, but I had a couple opportunities come up, so help, you know, book that. And we traveled to Mississippi a couple times, and so good guy, and I'm happy to see all the success he's having now as the
Yeah.
NWA champion. So you know,
Yeah.
support that NWA. Watch that on Fight TV. I know they have the paywall, but it's, I mean, $5. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So it's not
That's
a
a
heavy
ticket.
lift. Yeah,
You know,
so it's
that's a
not heavy.
ticket to the show.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's one of those times where I, you know, why are you spending some money on this? Well, I'm glad to see it. I know where it's going.
Yeah.
It's going to that talent that's there, and one of them I know pretty well, like Trevor. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I still do. You know, it's not. I'm not the where I was when I was a kid. I couldn't
Yeah.
live without it. You
Yeah.
know, I would watch, like, I couldn't wait to watch it or everything that came on. So I'm not like that.
Right.
So yeah, I'll go months upon time and with it, and I don't really follow like Impact right now, but I
Yeah.
still, you know, still check out stuff. I like that. I
Yeah.
do like the fact that network and all the old stuff that's there to see for the first time or see
Yeah.
with a different set of eyes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm like you. I'm older than you. I'm about 10 years older than you. And I kind of have the same perspective. I'm not into it like I was. It's just changed a lot. And a lot
it's
of people
different.
have different. Yeah, there you go. That's a good word for it.
Oh, difference word I'll stick with. I don't want
But
to say, you know,
right. And a lot of people that I've talked to, you know, they don't enjoy it as much, so they don't watch. Some of the older guys I've talked to,
right.
they just don't even watch anymore. They said, I can't do it. And I understand that. I mean, times change, people change, they got to
Right.
evolve with the business, or, you know, it's gonna go. And
Mhm.
it's just tough. I mean, you hate to see it because there's a lot of good talent, even down in the, you know, the independents. There's a lot of talent. And, you know, I went to Crusher Fest a couple weeks ago up in Milwaukee. I drove
Yeah.
up there and, you know, met Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, Eric Bischoff, Medusa, Kenny J. Met them all. Great guys, great people. Went to Crusher Fest, saw the matches. They were pretty good. I mean, for there, you know, but yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. They say it's a, what does it call it? One guy call it an exhibition now, he said. So I don't know
Yeah,
about that.
cosplayer trying to play wrestler. It's just different. You know, and it's a different world. You can't get the kind of heat you used to. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be real. Just, you know, they'd be sounding the human resources alarms off left and right. So It is different. Once that
Yeah.
cat was let out of the bag, you can't put it back in. So
Yeah.
I do feel like there can still be a different type of presentation.
Yeah.
NWA does some of it. I still
Yeah.
think there's some room for more of that type of
Yeah.
approach. The sports, almost like what AEW. Now, there's, I will say in the last little bit with some of the additions they've had, AEW is better than from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I feel like you could probably pluck one or two good things from each program. If you took a week's worth of all the different wrestling that's on right now at a national level anyway, you could probably put together one good 2 or 3 hour show of all, match or two from Raw or segment or two from Raw, segment from SmackDown, segment from Rampage, Dynamite, all of them. And you could bundle into a really crisp show.
Yeah.
But as far as for me, top to bottom, beginning to end, it's not the same to me. But I'm not knocking people who love it. I mean, they have that right too. I'm just old fogey. I've hit the get off my lawn 40, so that's where I'm at right now.
You don't want to know what I say. I'm 50.
Yeah. We're just old geezers, man. Time has passed us by.
Yeah.
Still love the wrestling business. That's the thing about it. It's not like I said, I'm more wear the hat of, not my cup of tea necessarily, but happy for the talents that are able to cash a check and feed their families. So
that's I don't agree with everything, but if they're getting good money for what they're doing, more power to them. That's the way I look at it as well, my friend. All right, one more question. What are you doing now? Or what are you, do you have any projects going on or anything like that?
Wrestling wise, no. I mean, it's pretty quiet. I had planned, sadly but true, had planned to do some traveling with Bobby. We were gonna, he had to cancel a couple of bookings there when he was getting ill at the end there, and so had planned to make those up and working on some other projects with him, and the Midnight Express and different things, and some bookings coming up. But unfortunately, those were not to be. So for me, I don't have anything truly on the horizon, except for this upcoming event for Mid-States Wrestling. They're doing that tribute event to Bobby. So they know it's hard to get me off the couch, as they would say, but that was one of the few times I would make an exception. So I'll be in Harrison, Arkansas, November 20th at that event. Look up Mid-States Wrestling if you're watching this and interested in that event. It should be it's a pretty good lineup. Space Cowboy Jason Jones and his promotion.
Okay.
We've worked, Bobby and I worked for them many times. I'm curious how it's going to go, because I was always, typically I manage and announce down there sometimes as a heel.
Yeah.
And I'm not very well liked in Harrison. It's almost like when I cross that state line, it just brings out the worst side of me. And I don't know what it is and why those hicks and hillbillies in Arkansas just can't understand and appreciate the greatness that stands before them when I walk into that building. But for some reason, the stench of those people, the ugliness of their faces, all that combined, when I hit that state, and especially that town of Harrison, it just changes me, man. You see I'm a nice guy in this interview, but once I get there, I just can't help but point it all out. I'm just telling these people the truth and trying to maybe offer them a toothbrush or something of that nature to improve their hygiene, and they just don't get it. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see if I get a warm reception or a booze, or maybe it's been a couple of years or so since the last time I appeared there, so they may have forgotten me entirely. So we'll see how it works. And maybe I will have a different demeanor, and this town won't stink. And maybe they've cleaned it up since I was there last, but guess you'll have to buy a ticket to see what happens, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. And there is a link to that online somewhere, so I can put it on the bottom of the page or something.
Yeah, I believe it. And I'm not sure what the exact link, but there is a Facebook page and event, I believe, both set up for that particular show. And they have been running pretty frequently in Springfield, Missouri, and Harrison, Arkansas. So they're picking up some traction. So
well, good. I will.
Harrison, man, I don't know. We'll see.
He's a good guy in Springfield, not so good in Harrison, right?
It depends, man. It's just, it's like you poke the bear with me. I don't get it. I come out and they start booing. I'm like, what is this? I didn't do anything. I just walked out here. So you think.
There you go. All right. Well, Mr. Brian Thompson, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. You're one of those executives in Laclede County.
Yeah, great things going on here. Yeah, we're very, very fortunate. So
Yeah, and thank you again for taking time out of your schedule, and I really appreciate it. And folks, go to those shows that he was talking about. I'll have it on the link at the bottom of the page. And Brian, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate
thank
it.
you. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's a pleasure's been all mine, and I enjoyed the invite. And it's always good to kind of reminisce and talk a little wrestling, as they say. So appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you. And folks, listen for our next episode. Take care.